This artwork is one of my Aomori paintings, and it is season 28, which is where we are, we call it midsummer. It's between June 21 and 28. In Japan, it gets very, very hot, but in this particular time, the weather is still mild. It's a season of anticipation. We're expecting summer in front of the door, and it's also a particular season for the sake. Unlike London sake we drink that is cold and refrigerated, the sake is warm and served in bamboo. So it's a very particular taste, and this repeats several times when we read about season 28. The Aomori works are actually extremely challenging because when I started, I never understood the difficulty of making 72 paintings, because our mood changes, our environment changes often, even though I come back in the studio, so my influences are very different. So to create a body of work that is consistent in a way is extremely challenging and complicated. It's also a very beautiful process overall. Well, season 28 it's a pre-summer season when the fields are really blooming. It's a season where it's very lush still, and it's a very enchanting season, and I found many very delicate colors during that season. One in particular is the apricot trees and the apricot blossoms that are extremely delicate. So the apricot originally is coming from China, but it's another particularity of season 28 that is very much reflected in this particular painting. And very interesting also the color, because the apricot in Japan, it's not as orange as our apricot, it's more peachy in a way. Therefore, I think the reflection in this particular work is more towards the pinks than the oranges maybe. The challenges are, I started to do works on paper, and I started also because I like scale a lot. These paintings are, the Aomori series is 120 by 140 centimeters. So I started to do some parallel works, and maybe my hand got more free, and I did not think so conditioned. So there have been certain outbursts in these paintings, and some paintings that start looking different. So going back to the 72 sometimes is a challenge, and when I start looking at them, I really feel very distinct differences in the way I'm painting them compared to the very first works that I did that were just really white in white. I used watercolor, I used pencils, I use crayons now, I use more pigments, I use tempera, I still use watercolor, crayon. So the process is becoming a mixed media process, still always based on my natural pigments. When you go to Japan and you have the luxury to go and see traditional Japanese collection, and often some of the incredible Japanese screens, you often have these incredible patterns that are in pink and gold and delicate greens, and you see these flower patterns that remind me of the very large Monet paintings of the water lilies in some sort, even though they're not connected at all. But when you look at the screens, and especially when you look at many screens, they're very, very closely related. And I'm not usually very keen on the impressionists, as we call them, but I find a lot of interesting points in these Japanese traditional paintings and in the work of Monet, Seurat, and even going much, much farther, the very, very early work in the 1960s of Kusama, where the colors were still more delicate, and you have this common thread that you start connecting, and this is, even though there are 72 paintings, the 72 paintings is really one body of work, and it's really a very, very fascinating and very disciplinary process to work on these paintings. And I will not know what to do when I finish this, because now I work on works on paper and some extra very large pieces, and as you know, I work on other projects, but I always think of the Aomori paintings that I discovered mainly on this last very long art trip. We started in the north and we finished in the Tokitomi Island, all the way in the south of Japan, following the sakura season. And out of this, coming back, I started reading about the 72 seasons and discovering this incredible story that I hear not even everybody in Japan knows. So it's really, on a cultural side, a very, very interesting process of reading the cultural aspect, the aspect of the universe, the aspect of scent and food, and what we smell in this period, and the meteorological impact on us, how we feel in a particular season. What I would really like, when you go to Japan and when you have the occasion to download this app of 72 seasons before you go to Japan, if you have time, and it's really easy reading. You can do one a day or one every 2-3 days, or you can do one per season. It's a very fascinating reading. You will never get bored, and you will get inspired when you like plants, weather, or if you like cooking, or overall if you like Japanese culture. Everything is reflected in these 72 seasons. So it's really, I was really overwhelmed when Ayako shared this with me, and when I was able to read about it, discover it, and on a daily basis going back to it when I'm painting, and how my work is changing. Because somebody came in the studio and said, oh well, it was curated, this is extremely violent. And yes, there is a certain violence in this particular work, but maybe some seasons there is thunderstorm, there is rainstorms, there is flowing water, there is fish are jumping. So these are emotional moments that are reflected in these works. First of all, very few people have seen any of the works of the Aomori paintings, because I'm still preparing the show, and we will disclose in the near future where we'll be showing this. But what the reaction is very interesting, because a lot of my other work are monochromes or more aggressive bodies of work that, like the glacial terminus or some of the land interventions, or even the light paintings that are black, red, or some of them are snow white monochromes. There is this aspect of, they're not figurative, but there is this kind of borderline shapes that you can make out that are not indicative really to much of my other work, but I'm sure that I will continue this in other works that I'll be doing, and it's really taught me to deal more with form, because a lot of form is present in the Aomori paintings. And again, the public has been far and few. When we do dinners in the studio, I hang usually 1 or 2 works, or there are some large works stacked on the wall. So people get a glimpse and they walk right away towards these paintings and ask a lot of questions.